Hello, I'm Diane Dodds, a Kern County attorney, and today I am going to walk you through preparing an affidavit death of joint tenant and the assessor form that goes with it. Now, on the right, you will see the form, which is available at the law library, and you can download it from the website. Uh, it And you could use another form as well, but this is the one that it's on the law library website. You will be able to use this form only if your property was held in joint tenancy. So the first thing you're going to need to do is get a copy of the deed. If you have the deed, fine, then you want to look at the deed. And I have a sample pretend deed here on the left. And in order to prepare this affidavit, there needs to be the magic words joint tenants on your grant deed. So if it just says John Doe and Jane Smith and doesn't say anything about joint tenancy, joint tenants, then you cannot use the affidavit, and you will have to do at least a summary probate procedure for the person who died. So in this case, a lot of times it's printed right next to the names, but in this case, it's down a couple lines, but it is there as joint tenants. That's what you have to find. Okay, so let's say that John died and Jane now is the survivor, and she wants to prepare the affidavit and have the property be in her name. So we're going to start with her name. And she's saying, mail the tax statements and the deed to my home. I'm going to assume it's her home for this example. And so it would be Jane Smith, 123 Sesame Street, Bakersfield. Okay. Now, the next thing we need is the assessor parcel number. This is often on the deed, and it is in this case in our sample deed. There we see the number 123, 123, 12, 1, okay? Sometimes, especially with an older deed, there won't be an assessor parcel number printed on it. So if that's the case, then you just get it from your property tax bill, or you can go online, the Kern County assessors, and they have a way to search for properties. You could just search by your address. So you enter in 123 Sesame Street, and then it will pop up with the assessor parcel number. Okay. So you get that in there, and then Jane is going to put her name in here, that she is of legal age and has been duly sworn, because this has to be signed in front of a notary public. She deposes and says, now here we're going to put the name of the person who died, but it has to be his name the way it is on his death certificate, because you have to attach a certified copy of the death certificate to this affidavit to record for recording. So let's say on his death certificate, he has his middle name, uh, John Gregory Doe. Okay. And so Jane is saying that John Gregory Doe, the person mentioned on the death certificate, is the same person as the John Doe who is named as one of the parties in the deed. Okay. Okay, that certain deed dated, all right, go back and look at the deed. When was it dated? 9/11/2016. So we'll type that in there. executed by, who signed it? It was John Doe. He signed it to who? Who was he changing the title to? He assigned it to John Doe and Jane Smith. So we'll put that in here. Joint tenants recorded on. Okay, the date recorded you get from the deed, and it will be in the top right corner. This will be, in most cases, printed on a sticker that the recorder put on it, but this is just a pretend deed, so we don't have the sticker. But you will find that information up here. So here it says it was recorded on 9/12/2016 as document number, and it's 2102346. Okay. You can ignore, unless this is a really old deed, the book, real page, image information. In the really, oh, like before 1970, deeds had a book and page number. That's how they were indexed. If you have a really old deed, then where it has document number, you can put instrument number, find the instrument number on the deed, and then give the book and page number. Okay. Of the official records of Kern County, covering the following described real property situated in Kern County. Okay. Now here we're going to insert the legal description. In this case, we go back to the deed and you see it's just 2 lines long. So we'll just type it in there, but we want to be very, very careful, because if there's any error at all in this legal description, it can invalidate the affidavit. Okay. Now, a lot of times on your deed, the legal description is quite long. And in that case, I really advise people not to type it over. If it's up frequently, it'll be on an Exhibit A. If that's the case, then what you need to do is just copy that Exhibit A, okay? And make a photocopy of it and attach that to your affidavit. And see how easy it is to make mistakes? So finish this. Okay, so if you typed it in, then we're going to proofread it very carefully, all right? If you didn't type it in, but you copied it onto a Exhibit A, then where it says see legal description, you're going to type in see if it'll let me do that just so I can show you what it looks like. See Exhibit A attached here too, okay? So we don't need to do that because we have typed it, it all fit in this form, but there's not a much space. So if it was very long, you would have to do it as an exhibit. All right, then Jane's gonna put the date that she's signing this. And she is going to sign it there in front of the notary public. So don't wait. So wait till you get in front of the notary. And then she puts her type name there. Now, this little box has to do with the recording fees. In addition, there's a charge for the first page and a charge for each additional page, and you can get that information from the recorder's office or online. There's an additional government code 27388.1 fee of $75 which will have to be paid unless you qualify for an exemption. Now, in this case, Jane qualifies for an exemption because this is her dwelling. Okay, she's an owner occupier. She lives in this house. So if that's the case, then you just mark this box and then you don't have to pay that $75. All right. All right, you're going to need a form from the assessor called a preliminary change of ownership report to go with when you go in to record it. All right. So here, it's a little confusing because it'll say buyer transferee, because it's the same form is used if somebody was selling a house. But it's works the same way if somebody's inheriting, they're the transferee or the buyer. Uh, so here you put your name and mailing address. Uh, okay, and here the assessor parcel number. And where it's seller transferor, that's the deceased person, John Smith. Okay, so here Jane will put her phone number. Okay. So that you would just type in there, okay? And if Jane wants to, she can put her email address too. Okay. All right, here we again put the address of the property. Now you answer these questions. Is this property intended as my principal residence? And in this case, we've already said yes, that Jane, that's her home. So we're going to check the box, yes. And then they ask you to indicate the date of occupancy or intended occupancy. So here we're going to, we'll say she moved in when they recorded that deed. Okay, so we'll put the date. And then they ask the question, are you 100% rated disabled veteran? And you have to read that whole sentence and then answer it. Okay. And in this case, we're going to say no. That would be the most common answer. Okay. Uh, although if John was 100% disabled and a veteran, and Jane has not remarried, this would apply, and she would check it yes, and then you get a special property tax break. Okay, mail the property tax information to Jane, and she's mailing to her home address. Okay, then we have questions. All right, transfer information. And this is regulated. The reason why they ask all these questions is to see whether you qualify for an exemption from reassessment. Because ordinarily, whenever property changes hands from one person to another, the assessor will revalue the property. And that usually means that your taxes are going to go up because uh, usually the current market value is more than what's on the property tax bill. So the major exception is for spouses. So here we don't, you can't tell from the deed, but let's just say that Jane and John were married. Okay. And if that's the case, then you check this yes. And now this means that it won't be reassessed. All right. Other exceptions are for domestic partners, um, a transfer between parents and children or parents and grandchildren. Now, this exception gets to be a little complicated because it used to be much broader than it is now. If the death occurred after February 2020, okay, or is it February 2021? I think that's right. Then uh, you're only going to qualify for an exemption for transfers between parents and children if one of the children who inherited is living there or going to move in within a year of the death. And then you get an exemption only so long as there is a child living there. All right. If this is the case, then you will fill out a separate form called a claim for exclusion from reassessment. And maybe another day I'll do a video on that form. Okay. But it's a fairly straightforward form. You just answer the questions. For transfers between grandparents and grandchildren, that only will be an exemption if the child who is the father or mother of the grandchild is deceased. Okay. And then you answer the questions. Was this the transferor's, the deceased person's principal resident or family farm? Because it has to be one or the other to qualify for an exclusion from reassessment. All right. Then other exceptions are, not as common. And I'm going to go over them really quickly. All right. Uh, the result of a co-tenant's death. Um, I guess that is the case here. So you would say yes, and you would put the date that John died. Okay. And in other exceptions are to replace a principal residence owned by a person who's 55 or older, or severely disabled, or you're replacing a residence that is damaged or destroyed by fire. Most of these would not apply to an inheritance, right? No. So I can skip through most of these. Let's see. Yeah, I don't think the rest would apply to inheritance. Unless you were inheriting through a trust. And if that's the case, then you would see if you qualify here and fill and check the boxes that would apply. Uh, so we can just move on to the second page. All right. Actually, if you qualify for an exemption, like if this is the spouse who's inheriting, you don't really have to fill this out, okay? But we at least want to fill out where it says type of transfer. Okay, this is an inheritance. So you put the date of death. So here we put the date from the death certificate that John died, all right? And if you only are inheriting a portion, you would put the portion you are inheriting, all right? But Jane is getting 100%, okay? So you can just skip purchase price in terms of sale because this was not a sale. So you could put NA for not applicable if you want. And then the property information, we're in this example saying it's a single family residence, and there is no purchase price, so we don't have to fill in this. And is there a manufactured home that goes along with this property? You can check yes or no. And whether it's has a decal number, or which you would enter here, or it is listed on the property tax bill. And then you answer yes or no whether the property produces rental or other income. If it's your home, it's not going to, would be no. And condition of the property, whatever you think it is. Then here, Jane's going to put her name under the buyer transferee and her telephone number and her email address. So Jane's number and the date. And Jane's title is just owner. Okay. All right. And then you just turn that in when you go to the recorder's office to record the affidavit. Then the affidavit acts as your deed and you're done. If they are going to reassess the property, if it isn't a spouse, if it's a child who doesn't qualify, then the county will be in touch, okay? And that you will receive a supplemental tax bill for the change in the valuation.